As deflation sets in, we see central banks around the world try to counteract this by introducing QE, quantitative easing. This policy has never historically worked. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, let's get into a few articles. We're going to talk about the ECB, and then I want to bring that worldwide. Let's go right here to the first article. As we see the ECB officials meeting in Vienna, expected to keep their ultra-loose policy unchanged again after they're expanding their quantitative easing by a third to 80 billion euros. That's $89 billion. So they've cut the deposit rate as well as introduced even more QE, and that barely, and I mean that literally barely, got anything moving, and that's with ruining the currency as a result. So what they said basically here is that, look, we are doing such great work. We have introduced this QE, and in fact, the analysts who know nothing have said that they will do even more, and it's going to be just as successful. This is really what they're saying. Let's move on. Another article out of Bloomberg is basically saying that the ECB president should be able to deliver his first snippet of good news for a year on his mandate. Most economists in Bloomberg's monthly survey, which is, as I said, is always wrong. And you know this because of what we've seen in the US. When they look at the Federal Reserve and what they believe they're able to do or going to do, they had suggested that the Federal Reserve was going to raise interest rates for years prior to doing it. And they would say every single meeting, well, they're probably going to raise. And then it became a situation where it was they have to raise now just to save face, even though the economy doesn't warrant that raise. So essentially, we have a little different scenario that's going on in the ECB because you do see considerable deflation occurring. So here we have basically included a bump of 240 billion euros to their bond buying program. So you have $250 billion being spent here, an increase, and that is all just to get all of this bad debt that is pouring out of Europe and increasing dramatically. And the ECB solution to this is to buy more. Never worked in history. Here we are seeing it over and over again. All right, look at this right here. Stocks Europe 600 added 0.1%, and they were happy about this. At the close of trading, after briefly rising as much as 2.2%, with automakers rising the most. The number of shares changing hands on the gauge was about 74% lower, and it goes on and on. And basically what they're saying here is that, look, the American economy is doing well, and they're going to have to increase borrowing cost in the coming months. And believe it or not, this is Janet the Felon Yellen saying this. And she's basically saying that the economy is doing well. As a result, we'll have to counteract that by increasing the interest rates. If anybody knows any positive statistics, except for the very few stock markets, or stocks I should say, that have come up, don't even look at the individual stocks. Look at the stock market as a whole. You get a different picture with that. Anyway, Federal Reserve and all the other mouthpieces out there, yet again, talking about how positive things are when they are absolutely not. And then we have this situation here where you have a great divide that has grown in between the haves and have-nots, and this is just one example. In this article here, they talk about a $250 million Manhattan apartment going up. They have a lot of, I believe it was half a dozen skyscrapers that are going up overlooking Central Park, which will have hundreds of millions of dollars in properties here, and you're talking about 360-degree panoramic units, and this is obviously very fancy, very nice. However, the problem is that who's going to pay for all this? It's not exactly affordable for the common folk, and it goes to show you that, look, where's that middle class? Where's the person who can afford a reasonable home? You have people who afford the $250 million home, and then you have a lot of people using social assistance, or they have to rent their homes. Manhattan just happens to be one place, a very good example for this divide that has been going on. FDA moves to protect vulnerable food supply from bioterrorism. What they said is that they want to introduce more regulations on the food supply in order to prevent any terrorist activities that could happen to the food supply. Now, this is very interesting because there could be an act of terrorism on the food supply. What I would like to know is that where's the scrutiny on the genetically modified food? Because, of course, they are, in my opinion, engaging in a terrorist activity when they introduce foreign substances into our food when it should just be kept natural. They aren't doing that. They're not going to do that. The FDA is in support of the biotech companies. That's all I wanted to point out for this right here. Let's move on quickly. To combat disease, state makes it harder to skip vaccines. So what you have here is a mother who's basically gave their children the vaccines. One of them starts having seizures. The other one develops some serious condition of the skin. And you have a situation where she's upset. So she wants to opt out, have her children opt out of the vaccines. As a result, they've said, look, we want to make it difficult for people like this to opt out. And that's when you have this policies that get in place that step on individuals' toes, and this is the danger that I see, because if an individual wants to do something or doesn't want to do something, they should be able to. It's up to them. And that's all I'll say for this video here. I hope you enjoyed it, trying to keep them fresh, trying to keep them quick. And so if you want more information, all free, head over to themoneygps.com. I've got the free e-course. I've got free ebooks there for you to check out. That's at themoneygps.com. Take care.